Okay, so we are here to talk about presenting and how to present ideas that get a yes. And what I always like to do when I'm starting a presentation is take deep breaths. I always like to kind of ground my feet, take some deep breaths. This helps me calm my nervous system. And another trick that I like to do when I'm presenting, and especially when I'm feeling a little nervous, is I think about the audience and I think about what I'm sharing with them is something that's going to help them. And that helps me get out of my own head. And I'm now thinking about the audience. It's about you, it's not about me. And that always makes me feel less nervous. So, really, the key to getting a yes is making it as easy as possible for people to say yes. So, how do we do that? You align your idea so that it's an answer to their problem. You establish credibility through authority or social proof, and you have a clear next step for them that you want them to take after the presentation. So, what we're going to talk about today is what not to do. You can often learn a lot about, what other people have done that didn't work, and also the psychological perspective. What's happening psychologically that is causing a brain to say no to something? We're also going to talk about why pitches succeed and how do we leverage those insights. And we're going to talk about the essential components of a high impact pitch deck, how to structure a compelling narrative, and then strategies for presenting confidently. And you gain confidence with practice. In the beginning, and even now, I've been presenting and on big stages and small stages and virtually for years. I still get nervous from time to time, but there are strategies that you can do. Like I mentioned, taking deep breaths ahead of time. Another thing I like to do before I get started is I literally take up space, I take up physical space. There is research done that when you take up space with your body for like 30 seconds, it sends a message to your brain and it gives you more confidence because the mind and the body are interconnected. And there is research around that. So let's talk about why pitches fail. And there's many reasons. Lack of clarity, cognitive overload, too much information, no clear problem or value, misalignment with their goals, and no clear next steps. So these are the main reasons why someone will say no to a pitch. So let's show some examples of what these could look like. I took all of these from the internet. So this slide on the right is confusing to me. There's a lack of clarity, there's lots of colors. It doesn't seem like the colors correspond with each other. I'm not sure what the bottom half, how it's relating to the top half. I can see that it's a timeline, but it's just confusing. It's not clear what's going on here. Cognitive overload, that's basically too much information. This was one slide that I found, and even though it's got 4 slides in one slide, this is way too much information. A brain looks at this and is like, this is too much work. I'm not even going to invest. I don't know what's going on here. Next. There's no clear problem or value. So in this slide, they're talking about a data platform. It's not clear what that platform, what problem it solves or what value it provides. Misalignment with their goals. So this is a slide that I think is geared towards like HR directors or people who are managing lots of employees. And it's misaligned. It doesn't feel like it's matching what an HR person would be caring about or thinking about. It's talking about safety KPIs and practicing self-regulation. It's just a little bit all over the place. And then this last example, these are 2 slides in a deck. The second to last slide says why invest? And it looks like there's 3 reasons. And then the final slide says thank you. There's no clear next step. So even someone who's like, I love this idea, I want to say yes to it, they don't know what to do next. So, and then people get distracted and they move on. So you always want to end with like a clear next step for people. So let's talk about what's happening psychologically with each one of these. So, a lack of clarity, it could be the story is muddy or there's no clear through line in the presentation. The slides aren't kind of laddering up. The audience can't answer, what are you actually proposing? Like, what is the thing? And they should be able to say that in one sentence. So what's happening psychologically is there's confusion, and a confused brain will default to no. How you can prevent this? Have one clear overarching concept. Everything in your deck should lead up to and reinforce that main idea, that main concept. What you want to do when you put the pitch together is then go back and interrogate every word and every page in your pitch and edit anything that doesn't support your concept. You're going to have a lot of information because, say, you've done a lot of research, you've got a lot of process. It's really about deciding what information do they need to have to say yes. And you don't have to give them every piece of information that you have. So it's really, when you're done with that first round of a presentation, it's going back and editing. What do they really need to know to say yes? You don't want to present a million concepts. You should come up with a million concepts to find the like 1 to 3 that you want to present. But you don't want to present a ton of concepts to them, because not only does it confuse them, right? It gives them overload of information. It also makes it sound, you come off as not knowing what the solution is, right? You want to come off as confident that you know what problem you're solving. And if you know what problem you're solving, then you wouldn't have 9 solutions, right? You'd have one clear, here's what we recommend, and here's like 1 to 2 alternative ideas. That also, it makes it clean for them. It doesn't give them so many things to think about, but it also makes you seem like you really know what problem you're solving. And then you want to use a clear, singular call to action. Our recommended next step is blank. The second thing that causes a brain to say no is cognitive overload, right? The slides are dense, there's too much information, or there's a lot of jargon, or it's visually chaotic. You're giving them way too much detail. It feels overwhelming. And the brain likes things that are easy. So if you're asking them, if you're giving information that's confusing or requires a lot of effort, they're just unconsciously going to default to no. Because when you're presenting an idea, you're asking them to make a change. And humans do not like change. And the reason we don't like change is because that creates uncertainty, right? When you're asking someone to do something new, either to start doing this idea or to stop doing something, that's a change. And that creates uncertainty, right? Because it's different. And inherently, there's a risk in there, right? Anytime we're doing something new, there's a risk. And we are hardwired as humans to avoid risk. It goes down, it's like a survival instinct. So it doesn't necessarily make sense. Rarely are we in a life or death situation, but our brain doesn't know that. So it'll mentally will still think life or death situation. We want things that are low risk, that are the least amount of uncertainty. So how do you prevent this? One idea per slide. Use simple, contrasting visuals, clean layouts, keep text minimal. You want to summarize your whole idea in one simple sentence, and you can do that early on. It's always good to reinforce, once you have that main concept, you want to reinforce it throughout your presentation. The brain likes repetition. When you have repetition, it starts to feel familiar. When it feels familiar, it feels less risky. You also want to ask yourself, if they remembered only one thing from this presentation, it should be blank. That's your main point. And everything ladders up and supports that point. So do you remember this this was my first slide? This is my main point. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes on a psychological level. And the way you do that is you align your idea so it is the answer to their problem. You establish credibility through authority or social proof, and you have a clear action you want them to take immediately after the presentation. I'm taking a pause here. This is another technique that's really helpful, especially when you want to make a key point. I just made a key point there. And so I'm pausing so that you can process that. It makes it even more resonant when you take a pause after a big point that you want to make. So number 3, no clear problem or value. The why, because again, you know how I talked about when you're pitching an idea, you're asking them to make a change. You're asking them to do something. And that creates risk. So they have to have a really compelling why. Why should they do something different? Why should they take that risk? If there's no urgent problem or no compelling opportunity, they're gonna default to no. You need to have clear and relevant benefits. Saying something like, "Oh, this will help you be more engaging," or "It's more modern," that is vague. That's not going to be compelling enough. Instead, you want to be as specific as possible about the value that your idea will deliver. Like, my idea will increase your relevance with Gen Z who identify as creatives. That's measurable. That's specific. I can measure that. I can put the idea out there and we can measure how many Gen Z who identify as creative have engaged with that idea. So what's happening psychologically is that if people don't feel the pain or the payoff, then there's no motivation to take a risk and do something different. How do you prevent having no clear problem or value? You want to frame the project in the language of their goals. So, this isn't just a rebrand, it's a way and you include their goals, their language, and being very specific. You want to use positive framing where possible. So, like, this unlocks or this reduces, instead of only kind of the negative. Like, if you don't do this, then you're going to have a consequence. You really want to inspire them by what is possible if they say yes to your idea versus using fear to motivate them. And I know I'm talking a lot of like business terms or like, unlock potential or get into X market, but you have to think like a business owner. Like, they all have problems. When someone says yes to an idea, they are saying yes to a solution to a problem that they have. That's the only reason they'll say yes to something. You are solving a pain point, you're addressing a pain point they have. And so it's really understanding that. What is the impact that your idea will deliver to them? The fourth big thing that causes people to say no is misalignment. Maybe the pitch reflects what you care about and not what they told you they care about or that they need. They can't see how your idea will help them. And what's happening here psychologically is that if they feel your presentation is driven by your personal interests over theirs, they're going to lose trust and interest immediately. They're going to think, oh, they just want to put a cool idea out there for their portfolio. They don't really care about helping us solve our problem. How to prevent this? Make sure that you meet with people first to learn about their business. Ask lots of questions. They should be doing most of the talking, and you want to take notes. You're going to then use the information that you've gathered to frame your idea as the solution to their challenge. And some key questions that you should ask are like, what are your business goals? What are your biggest challenges or pain points? Who is your target audience? So you want to ask these kind of questions, and then you use their language and their goals throughout your presentation. You also want to think critically, how does your idea help them, like measurably make an impact? How does the thing that you're pitching solve a pain point or help them reach their goals? Because that's really what's going to get them excited, is that you are helping them with either um, meeting a goal or removing a pain point. And then lastly, friction at the finish line. No clear next step. It's not clear. They might love your idea, but then they don't know what to do next. And this could be maybe the budget isn't clear or the timeline. There's just too many unanswered questions. And again, that confuses the brain. We're asking the brain to work too much when there's too many unanswered questions. So this creates ambiguity. It's the same thing as uncertainty, right? When there's ambiguity and uncertainty, that means there's risk or more risk. And so you want to remove that. As humans, we don't like risk. So even if they're interested, but there's just too many unanswered questions, they're going to default to doing nothing, right? Because you're asking them to make a change. That takes effort. They need to be motivated to do something different. How to prevent this? Your last slide should spell out a clear next step. At the end of your presentation, ask if there are any questions. And this is a great question to ask. What would prevent you from saying yes to this idea? And this way, then you understand what stands in a way of a yes. You can address it right there. So that is a great question to ask them. Okay, so now let's talk about why pitches succeed. There's a compelling problem, there's a credible solution, there's a concrete value, there's social proof, you've established authority and credibility, you've used emotion and story to connect with them, and you've aligned your idea with their goals. So the compelling problem or credible solution, you clearly show what the problem or the opportunity is. Your solution feels tailored to them and well thought through. If your idea is an idea that anyone can do, that any company could do, it's going to be less compelling, right? Because it's going to not feel as tailored to you. You didn't really listen. You're not really solving their specific challenge. The value is tangible and measurable. So it's time saved, revenue unlocked, risk reduced, user love, attracts customers and talent. These are all common motivators. When you're pitching an idea to a company or an individual at a company, these are the things that motivate them. So here's an example. These were slides from a pitch. And it wasn't the first slide in the deck, but this slide, our insight, what they discovered was that you can't be what you can't see. That's a great hook. At the end of this presentation, I'm sure everyone who is listening to this presentation remembered that line. It's just a good, very simple, it's bold. You can't be what you can't see. Then they followed that up. Here's our idea. Here's how we're going to solve that. I think the type is way too small. It would make it bigger, but it says use pop culture to expose the ecosystem of creative career opportunities, inspire curiosity and exploration for how to turn passion into a career. And then the next slide was a video of the idea. And what it was, the video doesn't work anymore, but what it was, it looked like Instagram. And they used kind of an Instagram feed to show all the surprising creative jobs that we don't even know exist. Like for every Billie Eilish, there's dozens of creative jobs. Billie Eilish has a set designer, costume designer, script writer, producer. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of creative jobs for every kind of big name creative person that we know. And so that was what this idea was about. So it's a compelling problem and a credible solution that shows value. Social proof. We're humans. We like to think that we're not influenced by other people, but we very much are. So by showing relevant precedents, like showing competitors or admired brands or case studies that support your idea, will make them feel like they're taking less of a risk. Because they're like, oh, other people have done this before. This isn't that risky, right? You're reducing uncertainty and risk. That's what you want to do throughout your presentation. You can include testimonials, quotes, metrics from past work how you've built trust, let's show you an example. So here's one. This was a slide taken from a deck that the person was pitching learning sabbaticals, and she was pitching to like an HR executive, so someone who's in charge of employees. And it's kind of a little bit of a wild idea, like a sabbatical where they just go and learn, and it's risky, right? Because you're saying like, hey, will you pay for employees to go learn and not work? But in this slide, the person did research and found all these companies that we admire that offer things like this. And so as someone who's on the receiving end of this idea, I'm like, oh, this actually, I really respect these brands. I want to be in this group. I want to be a cool company that offers this to employees. These are companies that are very successful and they offer it. So it makes it less risky. Authority and credibility. So in the deck, you want to establish credibility in one slide. And so you can do this by saying who you are and any relevant experience that you have. You could reference how you've helped other people with similar challenges. And I know that you all are starting out, so you might not have other references. You could use schoolwork or other projects that are similar. So you really want to, when possible, again, take the risk out of saying yes to you. They might love your idea, and then they're thinking, oh my gosh, will Ariana be able to deliver on this? But if you've shown me past work you've done, I can say, oh, she's done this for other people too, so she'll be able to deliver this for us. You want to use confident but not arrogant language. So, you could say, based on our research, our recommendation is blank. And also showing your process, not just the final design, because this communicates that you have rigor, that you've really been thoughtful about your idea and you've taken them on the journey. It's not random. You just want to make sure that they don't need to know everything, right? So you want to be mindful of how much, again, information to share, because you don't want to overload them with too much process. So here's an example. These are 3 slides in a deck. And on the left-hand side, meet the founders. And each paragraph talks about some of the founder, some of the projects that they've done, some of the clients they've worked for, some of the results they've gotten, press, anything like that. And then the next two slides highlight some of the work they've done that's kind of similar to what they're pitching. So this, again, it takes some of the risk and uncertainty out of saying yes. Because you look and you say, oh, they've had all these successes, so this will be successful too. And then lastly, using emotion and story. Tapping into the human condition and sharing the impact on an emotional level. Believe it or not, this is counterintuitive, but when you share a personal story, it actually hits on, there's universal truths in a personal story. And it makes your idea relatable. And here's a great example. This is actually Tinder's first pitch deck. They at the time they called it Matchbox, before they switched the name to Tinder. But so the first slide, meet Matt. Matt spots a girl he likes at a party, but like most of us, Matt won't go over and say hi. And then the next slide, he has the same problem most of us do, fear of rejection. Meet the cure. So do you see how powerful this is? This is a very personal story, but yet it's universal. We all have a fear of rejection. We can all relate to that. So it's a very personal story, yet it's universal. That's super powerful. And he positions the idea as the solution. In just look how few words and how simple this is. Do you notice too in slide 2 and 3? He says, like most of us, like most of us. So they're really using language to say, hey, we have the same problem you do. We understand, we get it. And lastly, alignment. So making sure that you're listening to them and you've incorporated their goals and constraints and fears into your presentation. Use the same language that they use. This will help build trust and rapport, and it's a way for you to really tailor your idea to meet their needs. Okay, structuring a persuasive pitch deck. These are the main 6 components in a pitch deck. There's a problem or an opportunity, your idea or solution, the value proposition. Why should they do your idea? Why should they say yes? Then proof or supporting points. This lowers the risk, right? This removes some uncertainty. Then the team, who's behind it. And if it's just you, that's fine. They're going to want to know about you. So how do you present yourself? And then next steps. You can use this simple structure. What, why, how, next? What is the idea? Why does it matter? What problem does it solve? How does it work? What are some of the key steps or features? And then what action do you want them to take? The pyramid principle is a top-down approach. It's a tried and true approach to presenting an idea. And the most important principle here is that you start with the main idea first and you present information in a top-down way. You do this because it's easy for listeners to comprehend and remember. It also, when you give a main idea, people's brains immediately go, why do you think that? Like, how did you come up with that idea? Which leads you into the supporting ideas, the supporting points. It's counterintuitive because it doesn't match how we think, right? When we start a project, we don't know what the answer is. We discover through research, analysis, exploration, designing. And then the problem is we're tempted to present the idea in the way that we discovered it, right? So this is bottom up, where it's like we do the research and then we arrive at the solution. And then we want to present the idea in the exact way that our process was. But that makes more work for the brain. So what you want to do is you want to present the main idea first. And then when you do that in people's brains, they're thinking, well, why? Why did you arrive at that? And then you answer it. Presenting with confidence. And this takes time. And it's something, even after you've been presenting for years, you'll still, we all get nervous sometimes. When you are clear, you sound more confident automatically. When someone is nervous, they tend to talk a lot, they talk fast. And people on the receiving end, it makes them nervous. Have you ever experienced that where you're watching someone who's presenting and you can tell they're nervous, and then it makes you feel nervous and it takes your focus away from what they're presenting? Everyone wants you to succeed. When you're presenting, we all want that person to feel confident. It makes it more comfortable for everyone. I would recommend practicing out loud. I do that all the time. I did it for this presentation. I usually run through my presentation several times. And I will say it out, not just reading it, but I say it out loud because it's different. It's different when you verbally say a presentation versus just kind of reading it in your head. Scripting your first and last sentence. Beginnings and endings feel scary, so make them automatic. Lock in, and say it over and over again so you know how you're starting. I've noticed that when I'm nervous, it's really the first 30 seconds. Then once I get into it, I'm in the zone. So if you have that first sentence, it really makes it makes it so much easier to get started. And then once you get started, you're focused on your presentation, and the nerves calm down. Here's some kind of opening, and then having a closing too. How do you want to wrap it up? Memorizing these first and last lines is key, and then everything in the middle will just kind of flow, and it can be more flexible. Breathe and pause on purpose, especially during sections or after you've said a really key point. You can emphasize that point with a pause. So nerves make people talk fast. We talked about this. 2 simple tricks. Before you start, do some deep breaths. I also like to take up a lot of space. During the talk, you can pause for 2 to 3 seconds between sections, or if you're nervous or whatever, take a pause. It might feel long to you, but it actually looks calming to others, and it gives the audience time to process what you're saying, right? It's a lot of information. It's nice to have a beat to just kind of process what was just shared. Stand or sit like you mean it. This is really key. I always stand in a presentation because you have more energy. Whenever I can, I stand. If I don't come with energy, the audience is going to feel even less energy. So you want to have, on TV, they say you have to put more makeup on than you normally would, or on stage or theater, it's you kind of overly do it, maybe to 110%, so that it looks normal. You have to do that in presentations too. You kind of almost have to be over energized so that it comes off at 100%. Your mind and body are connected, so you can fake confidence for your brain. When your feet are flat on the floor, and your shoulders are relaxed and not hunched, you are giving, this is more confident posture. And when you have a confident posture, it sends a signal to your brain that you feel confident. And so you calm down. So that's a way that you can also, I don't want to say manipulate your brain, but kind of, right? They're connected. So if you are nervous, put your body physically in a confident posture, and it will tell your brain that you're confident. It will calm your nerves. You also want to have your hands gently resting on the table or loosely, or you can, use that in presentations. You don't want to have hands in pockets or arms crossed, because it's defensive, or you seem bored. And if the presenter is bored, then why should the audience be interested, right? So you want to be enthusiastic because if you're enthusiastic, our energy feed off of each other's energy. So if you're energized by what you're sharing, they will be too. You also want to make sure you're making eye contact and facing them. Um, and not just looking at your slides and reading from slides. I would say pick 2 to 3 people to in the group and make eye contact with, um, instead of just kind of scanning nervously. Reframe frame nerves as energy. So most people think I'm nervous, something's going to go wrong, but you can say I'm energized because I care about this. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be nervous. And that's a good thing. Caring is a good thing. So the physical signs of nerves like fast heartbeat or butterflies um, are the same for excitement. So in your brain, label it as excitement as opposed to nerves. And really just even rewording that, again, it's a trick for our brain. It's like, I'm excited. I'm excited about this. It really, it tells our brain, it makes us feel less nervous. And so we're kind of reinforcing that. We're excited, we're not nervous. You want to practice on a low stakes audience, practice with a friend. And then you can ask, like, was that clear? Where did you get lost? How could I make this better? Also, use your phone to record the presentation. I'll do this often. I'll just record myself so that not only can I hear the way I kind of share a story or the cadence, but I can also see my body language. Am I saying a lot? Is there, am I moving around? Am I on the screen? Just all that stuff. So I recommend recording on your phone. And remember too, you're building a skill. You're not proving your worth. Your idea is going to solve someone's problem and you're excited about sharing it. It's about them, it's not about you. Shift from please like me to let me help you. Because oftentimes it can feel scary to get in front of people, and especially with an idea. You're like, this is my baby. I love this idea. I hope you love it too. It can feel really scary, like you're being judged or you're the fear of rejection. But instead of that mindset of like, God, please like me or please like this idea, be in a position and it's much more confident. Let me help you. I'm excited to help you with my solution is going to help you, and here's why. Um, they have a problem, you have a fix. You're on the same side. And this I have found personally, this helps me get out of my own head, right? I'm like, I stop spinning. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna screw up, or like, what if I forget something? It's like, no, 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 this is about them, and I'm here to help. So again, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. And the way you do that is you align your idea so it is the answer to their problem. You establish credibility through authority or social proof. And then you have a clear action you want them to take as a next step. And I just realized I did not give a clear action in the text, in the deck. So I would say my clear action or next step for all of you is the next time you put a presentation together, practice it at least twice physically, like either record yourself, present in front of a friend, or record yourself so that you can practice it verbally, but also kind of see how your body language is. So that is my next step for you all. And so with that, I'd love to answer any questions that you have. And you can feel free to you can put it in the chat, or you can come off mute.
I guess my thing that I find myself thinking about where I understand with like pitches for like stories is like, how do you convince them of the urgency or the issue that you're like trying to solve there, or like trying to convince them to like invest kind of in high production budgets that might be required?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sebastian. Research. What I found is that you, if you show the data, you don't have to do any convincing. You're like, look at the numbers. So with all the ideas, it's there should be some level of research. Um, I think showing the potential of what is possible. So like, hey, if you invest in this, it'll cost you X amount of dollars, but here's the ups, here's the potential. In 2 years, you could get a return of X. Or so kind of, and I don't know what's possible without having the specifics, but I would say doing research and using data and numbers as much as possible, and also competitors. People are motivated because, again, it removes the risk. They're like, oh, other people are doing it. We should be doing it too. So that's another thing as well, is kind of like, what is their competition doing? That's a motivator. It's always better to inspire people by what's possible, like what they gain, as opposed to what they lose by doing nothing. Does that
Well, let
answer
me
your
just
question?
thank you all.
Um, Sort of, but not really. Like, are we just talking about the potential monetary like profit prospects from like say like entertainment property that would be pitching, or like the other thing should be like pitching per se, like importance of the story or like appeal of the art, or if like the market's out there and something like that.
Yeah, I think it's have you
Mhm.
done research? Like how much data do you have? Like why do you why do you know that this is the right investment for them?
Hmm. Yeah. And I've kind of done some of it in business class, but I haven't been touching too much on it recently because it's just a
Yeah.
larger.
Yeah, I would
But
yeah, I would do more research. I would like you'll feel more confident presenting. It'll just give you more proof points. Yeah. When in doubt, I always find you don't have to convince. It's really like, here's the problem, here's the context, and here's the solution. And so with yours, with an investment, um, I'm sure you've looked at a lot of pitch decks. I can follow up with, there's a website called, I think, SlideShare. And on SlideShare, there's all these classic pitch decks from like Airbnb, when it was called Air Bed and Breakfast, and the Tinder. And I found tons of pitch decks from Fortune 100 tech companies. And so you can look there and you can see the formula, you can see how they do it. A lot of them have like what the market opportunity is, what's the potential, who is the audience, how many people are out there, what is the projected revenue. So really, in your case, I think it's more doing more research. Yeah, you have to know the audience. So this requires you knowing who the audience is, how much of the audience is out there, of like, because then that will tell you like how big is the market opportunity. And if you want, I didn't introduce myself in the beginning, um, but my name's Maria Salepi, and I'm run the creative entrepreneurship program at Art Center, which is new. And I'm building out all these resources. And I also offer advising sessions, one-on-one advising sessions. So if you have any specific questions, come make an appointment with me and we can talk about it.
it's still available to alumni.
Yeah, it is up to a year out, but I'd be a little flexible. So
I
yeah.
think
Um,
it's last month.
what's
Yeah, I
that?
think I just have this last month, but all right, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Up to a year out. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Jay, did you have a question?
Oh, hey, no, I'm just listening. So, no, this is really helpful. Just the kind of the breakdown, kind of a good refresher. So, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. What else? Because,
Maria,
yeah, go
hi.
ahead.
Do you teach any classes in Art Center?
I don't, but
Uh,
I do teach workshops. I do these workshops. Um, I'm leading an alumni panel next week that everyone's invited to. It's going to be in the Business 101 class. Um, that and you all are invited. One is going to be on virtual and one is in person. And you can find that on Connect. So, but I don't. But I do these workshops.
I
And
see.
yeah.
Because I had like a intro to entrepreneurship class with Kevin, and it sounded a lot like what you're saying in this workshop, so I was just wondering.
Oh,
Because
good.
it's very helpful. So thank you.
Great. Good. I was hoping it would be because pitching is so important for creative ideas. Like I remember I was an art director. I started my career as an art director in advertising. And I remember there was this one colleague of mine who didn't necessarily have the best ideas, but she was so good at presenting. And so she often had her ideas were chosen and she was often producing these ideas, these commercials and they weren't the best ideas. There were other ideas that most often were better. She was so good at presenting. So we often can think as creatives like, oh, my idea will stand for itself, or if I just like really focus on having good ideas, then they'll get bought, or I don't have to worry about how I present them. It's not the case. Like I've definitely seen people who have great ideas, but they didn't present them well, and so they didn't get bought, and then vice versa, where it's like kind of a mediocre idea, but it was presented in a really compelling way, and it did get bought. So it's a really important skill for all of us.
Yeah, I went to the study away program in Art Center and it's all about presenting. So I kind of like we did like 2 weeks worth of presenting and it was like helping a lot in pitching out our ideas.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good that you
Yeah.
got that experience. Was there anything that you learned that I didn't talk about? Is there a tip or anything that comes to mind that
Mm, I think a lot of the times it's about not having anxiety about it and just like because a lot of us made mistakes on the point when we
Mhm.
were talking, but it's about how you fix it.
Mhm.
Like, if you're not scared or like if no one can tell you have anxiety, they'll think you're confident. So just fake that you're confident.
Yeah, it's
That's like
so
the main
true.
point. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true because I mean, we've all probably been there, right? Where you're like seeing someone present and you can tell they're nervous and you're like, "Oh my gosh, now I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable
Right.
watching them because I can see they're so nervous." And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not thinking about what they're presenting. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I hope they don't screw up." Like it's uncomfortable for no one, everyone wants you to succeed. It's uncomfortable for everyone when they can tell someone's nervous.
That's
And
very true.
yeah. And to be honest, I was a little nervous before giving this presentation today. This is my first time putting it together. Um, and there's a lot to say. But I do those techniques and it really does help. And then once you get into it, the biggest trick that I've learned when I'm nervous is I'm too much in my head. I'm like, this is not about me. This is about them. I'm helping them. I want them to succeed and I have this information I want to share with them. And so when I'm in that mindset, then my anxiety drops away because I'm not thinking about my nerves. I'm thinking about how can I best help them.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of advertising and creative direction did you do? Because I'm graduating this term, like in 3 weeks, and we did talk about having um maybe there's a side of my work that can go into creative directions. So I was just
Mhm.
wondering.
Yeah, I did art direction. And so I was an art director, and then I made commercials and print ads. Um, and then that was in New York, worked for a company called Y&R. And then I worked at 72 and Sunny, and I ran a creative residency program. So it was kind of an unusual, it was like a team from all over the world, and we made all sorts of things, documentary
I
films,
see.
immersive events. Yeah, and it was kind of like we were marketing the agency in a way. Um, but I'd be happy to, if you want to get an appointment with me, be happy to look at your portfolio or give any kind of advice or support that you need.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Did you come
Yeah.
from a more creative background or like a more marketing and business background
More
too?
more creative. I went to art school. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. I went to art school and then I went to portfolio school. So yeah, very much on the creative side.
Wow. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing it with me.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I have your email?
Yeah. It is. I'll put it in my let me put it in chat. Artcenter.edu. Yeah. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. How do you say your name?
Oh, I'm Suja, sorry. I'm
Sidja.
Suja Wang.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
What else? Does anyone have any questions or maybe tips that I didn't mention that you found helpful?
Yeah, I actually took Kevin's intro to entrepreneurship class as well, and I found a lot of like similarities in what you guys talk about. I think one of the good things that he says in his I think it's in week one. He talks a lot about
Mhm.
presenting, just throughout the class. But a good thing he says to follow is like, here's what I'm going to tell you, here's what I'm talking about, and here's what I told you. So just like
Mhm.
going over those three things throughout the presentation is super, super helpful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like taking that class gave me a lot of confidence, and this is like Jay said, this is like a really great refresher. So thank you,
Yeah.
Maria.
Good, good. Oh, that makes me happy. Yeah, it's helpful. Like, it's a good reminder. Uh, Even when I was putting it together, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It's just good to be reminded. And, like I did with my slides, I have that main point and I
Hmm.
showed it in the middle and then I showed it at the end. Like, here's the main point. And then in the middle, I reminded you of it. And at the end. So yeah, it's the same. And the reason that Kevin suggests that and that works is because the brain doesn't want to be confused, right? You want to make it as easy as possible for them. You want to default to yes. And so you're helping their brains track what's happening. Like, you're helping orient them and you're
Right, right.
reminding them what this is about. Yeah, that's great. Um, any other questions before we pop off? Well, thank you so much for coming. You get extra points week 12, Friday. Um, Come and see me. Make an appointment. Aw. It's a pleasure. And creative entrepreneurship is new. And so I'd love to hear from you what would be helpful. I'm building out all these resources. So um, don't be a stranger. Love to support you. Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.